It's Friday on the BWI Daily Edition. You've got your paycheck in hand. Now let's get some of that fun money and put it to good use. Ryan Snyder's Best Bets coming up at the end of the show. Ryan Snyder, our recruiting insider, is here to give you that information in recruiting, some big news potentially coming up this weekend, and of course, Ryan Snyder's Best Bets, where to put your money this weekend on college football so that you can, spice things up a little bit. Ryan, happy Friday. How you doing today?
Doing well, man. Excited to be back. Went 4-3. Really should have been 5-2, but isn't that what every degenerate says, right? You always point at the one game you lost. So, hey, we won money last week. That's important. We're at 500 on the year, and we'll get back to it. We'll talk about it a little bit more at least later in the show. But there's some good recruiting news I think to hit on. So let's start there.
Yeah, and I'm interested in your take on some of these pretty big lines that we got coming up later in the show, because that is one thing we talked about last week, and I'm interested to see where we're going there. But yeah, you put in a crystal ball prediction this week, a FutureCast.
FutureCast, get it right. It's a FutureCast.
Yes, it's in the title. It is in my brain as both, because it's just one of those things. The FutureCast for a Penn State target that we've talked about a couple of times. So tell us what is going on this week in Penn State recruiting where you felt you were ready to move on to the next step with a Penn State recruit.
Yeah, Joey Schlaffer, man. I should have put this pick in probably weeks ago. Honestly, just kind of forgot about it. I meant to do it. Here's the game footage. I was just at his game a couple weeks ago, and I meant to kind of do it after that and kind of just forgot. So when we learned a couple days ago that he was coming up this weekend, it just kind of reminded me to get that pick in. So he's on commitment watch every time he's on campus, period. Will it be this weekend? He hasn't quite said, but I will say that I do believe some families coming up for this one, a little more than normal, I guess you would say. So that intrigues me. And then also we've seen these game day commitments now for three of was it with Matthias and Lamont? We've seen it for a couple games is my point. So, just that's kind of a trend we have going here. And it seems like Penn State likes that trend, and it would make a lot of sense to see it happen again. So will it happen? I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm getting the pick in, and we'll probably prep a story to play it safe. I always prep, our subscribers know I always prep stories, just kind of, you don't ever want to get caught with your pants down kind of situation, Yeah. So, we will have that ready to go, and we'll be watching him very closely around 11:15, when the guys are out there on the field during pregame, and be curious to see what happens at that handshake at midfield. So Joey's a heck of a player, though. You saw that last catch there, man, was an awesome play.
Yeah.
It was on 4th and 20 something, and he makes this awesome play over Aiden Martin, who's going to be a Division I player at Governor Mifflin as well. Was really impressed with Joey. He's not much of a blocker. He's more of a big big wide receiver than anything else. But he can definitely make plays, and once he just continues to add muscle and get bigger, there's a lot of ways that he can be used in this offense. So. Will he be a commit this week? We'll see. But I do think regardless of whether it's Saturday or not, it's just a matter of time. I mean, he's Michael Menich's younger brother, a lot of family ties here, grew up Penn State fan. I mean, I can go on and on about why this makes sense.
So I will agree with you. And by the way, you're not the only one who's doing some prep work. I've been looking at some film here just to see what Joey brings to the table. It's interesting. And if he commits, you'll be getting a bunch more of this in T. Frank's film room. But I've been watching his film this week, and when they take a superhero and all the guys that have played like Superman, and they mold all their faces into one AI generated Superman character. That's kind of what Joey reminds me of, as if you smushed all of the recent Penn State tight ends together, you get Joey Schlaffer. He's somewhere in between Mike Gesicki and his skills as a receiver and some of the physical abilities of a Pat Freiermuth, but he's somewhere in the middle. Like, if you just smooshed all the Penn State tight ends, there's a little bit of Theo Johnson in there as far as his receiver abilities. But I'll say this about his blocking. I'm encouraged and I'm optimistic because some of the building blocks are there. I think technically he's quick. He can get around players. He can get technical blocks, kind of more so than the domination ones. And then his pad level for a guy that is pushing 6'6", 6'4" to 6'6", somewhere in there. I think for a tall guy is what I'm saying. He's got really good pad level. He comes off low. A lot of guys, even if they get to a good pad level, they still step up. They still go up in their first movement. He fires out low. He's able to get there. You just got to bring a little more juice with it into the block, and I think that's something that they can work on at Penn State. But yeah, if you just an amalgamation of all the other tight ends you've seen at Penn State, he's kind of right down the middle on all of those things.
Good info. Yeah, and for the record, he's pretty much 6'5.5". I mean, that's
okay.
From what I've gathered. So I'll round up when they're right in the middle there. I can't put halves into the rival system, so I'll round up over rounding down. We just expect guys to continue growing, so that's kind of why I do that. But yeah, he's basically 6'5.5". Definitely needs to add some muscle. He'll tell you that. I mean, he needs to get bigger and into the weight room more, and he is. He's definitely, from what we've seen in previous years to now, adding good weight, and that'll only continue. So good player, great kid, man, good family. This is obviously a lot of Penn State ties here, so we can go on and on about it. But Joey should be in Nittany Lion Village Saturday. Gonna have to check it out on the site. I don't know. We'll see.
So that's now 2 tight ends in the class of 2023, right? I mean, as they've been recruited, Matthias Barnwell and Joey Schlaffer.
Yep. Yeah. And I'll be curious to see if I think they could add another too. I mean, Nicholas Harbor is just this gem we've talked about with I mean, he's a rare sprinter, running, what was the number? I think it was like a 10-3 or something like that he did this year, but he could be a DN. I mean, I don't really want to include Harbor and the tight end talk. When I asked the kid what he wants me to list him as, it's tight end. So that's why we discuss it. But a defensive end is definitely possible there. And I think maybe, long term, that would be his best projection. But Neo Avery too, from Good Counsel, is another player I don't want to sleep on, because Avery makes a lot of sense. He's a guy that Penn State's been high on for a long time too. So a third tight end is definitely possible in this class.
And if you want to take an amalgamation of all the superheroes, I think Nicholas Harbor kind of looks like the Flash when he plays football. So it all ties together. I mean, that dude is fun to watch. The tight end position, I think, is really interesting, given the storylines going on in the Penn State football season right now as far as their production currently, but also the track record so far under James Franklin of finding those guys. So how has Ty Howell been doing? I know the family ties with Joey are one thing, and I keep saying Joey because I'm afraid of his last name. Schlaffer?
Yeah, Schlaffer. Yeah,
Schlaffer.
I believe so. Schlaffer. I'm not sure if it's Schlaffler or Schlaffer. I think it's Schlaffer.
I think so too.
But people have said it's similar to laughter, if that makes sense. So I'm going with Schlaffer.
Okay.
But yeah, it's. I was saying Schlaffer and all these other things. So Schlaffer, just we'll go with that.
Okay. How has Ty Howell been doing with the Exeter Township tight end and that position in general, as he is now the lead guy at that position after being the graduate assistant, stepping into that role now?
Well, and having him as a graduate assistant is actually a big part in this, just because obviously Ty has a lot of ties to Michael Bennett, so there was a good family bond there. But the one thing Joey really hit on was that when Bowen left, Joey became one of Ty's first targets, and Joey was kind of open about it in a previous interview we did about how it was one of the first relationships he built, and Ty kind of, I don't want to say taught him how to communicate with coaches or whatever, but it just it was good that they have a bond from previous ties with his brother and whatnot, because it kind of showed him the ropes a little bit, I guess, on how it works in building relationships with coaches, and I think that is another reason why this helps. But this would be, I mean, Matthias Barnwell, yes, he's currently committed and he's been around for so long, I guess is what I'm saying. So to me, this would be Ty Howell's first big. This was Ty's commitment, where Matthias is at too. I mean, Ryan Snyder has some roles there as well. So, I mean, I think Ty's done good, and I think Ty's kind of got under the radar with Jerry Cross being committed already, and the room being stacked. So what we've seen from him as a recruiter hasn't quite shown up yet, but he's having a big impact. I think it's. Does he do the private schools or the public schools in Maryland? I forget which one, but because Poindexter does the opposite then. There's so many public and private schools in Maryland that are
Right.
great, but he's doing a great job in Maryland. I've talked to coaches about it. I know Penn State's really happy with, how he's done on the recruiting trail. So, and Ty's, I mean, anyone who's gotten to know Ty, it shouldn't surprise you that, he would be a good recruiter. He's just a genuine guy, a lot of fun. He's just an easy person to talk to and relate with. So this would be a big pickup for him, and I expect many more to come in the future.
And it's a position where Penn State right now has some flexibility and depth in the class of 2023 and in the room in general. I think that's a positive sign. I'm always interested how this works too when it comes to the positional recruiter and then from the offensive coordinator. What are you looking for? So that dynamic has interested me as well. And do you think that there's anything? Is there anything to that, I guess, is my question, when it comes to does Mike Yurcich dictate to Joey all the way down to a guy like Joey Schlaffer of what he's looking for in a tight end, or is it more of what the team is finding as far as talent
It's the whole
and ability?
staff.
Okay.
It's the whole staff. I don't want to pretend like it's Yurcich saying this guy, go. Like Yurcich is really more so, and the same with Brent Pry. Like out of all of Penn State's assistants, the coordinators do the least amount of recruiting. Okay, like they really kind of focus more on team stuff. So it's more so just it really starts with the recruiting staff. From Andy Frank to Kenny Sanders and all those guys, like they really are the ones kind of doing a lot of the evaluating, the kickstarting of the process, and then the staff picks it up from there. They see what they like, but it's really a whole staff thing. I mean, pretty much the whole offensive staff will watch Joey's tape and give their opinions on whether to pursue him or not. So it's I can. I can't really add much more than that. It's just, that's kind of how it works.
I think that's important to know that it's not just Ty Howell. It's not just
no.
It's not from a top down. It's really the whole staff approach, which I think has been a Penn State staple, which has been an interesting thing, and as you mentioned in this recruiting process, has helped keep some stability through coaching changes. Another position where we're monitoring some things from what you've told us in the past. Josh Miller, he's been on campus a couple of times now. We've talked about it a couple of times, I think. Tell us more about him, because this is an interesting situation to me. He's a 3-star in the rival system, but he's being pursued by a boatload of top programs. What's the story with Josh Miller?
Yeah, so 6'6", 323, Life Christian Academy. I'm not quite sure he's 6'6". I'm looking to try and get a more accurate measurement out of him when he visits this weekend. I'll definitely be asking some people about that. So, but yeah, Clemson that definitely seems to be the top competitor here for Penn State. In my opinion, Clemson and Penn State seem to be the top schools. North Carolina is in the mix there as well. We can go on and on about like who else, like Texas A&M has offered, Tennessee, Michigan State, Kentucky, Maryland, Florida State. But it really feels like Clemson and Penn State are the two that separated themselves. And he's planning to make some sort of an announcement on November 2nd. To me, I get the impression that he wants to commit, but he's kind of hedging there. And if he's not completely ready, he won't. What I'm really curious just to learn is just kind of where he ranks on Penn State's board and Clemson's board, because I see a quality player here, but just he's probably going to be an interior guy, which is why I say I don't know if 6'6" is completely accurate. From what I gather, Penn State likes him more as a guard, and it's just the interior is just so heavy in this 2023 class. There's just a ton of guys that they're high on and would fit well. So just where exactly he fits is something I need to learn on still, and then that could impact whether he were to actually make a commitment on November 2nd or not. But coming back here this weekend, it would be his third visit since the summer. He and his teammates participated in the 7-on-7 Big Man Challenge at the end of June, and he came back for an unofficial visit July 27th, and now this would be his first game visit. I believe he's been to Clemson twice now as well. So as I said, I think Clemson's a big player there too. So just kind of getting a feel for where he ranks. That's what I need to figure out before I would put a FutureCast in for either team, or just to gauge him actually if he's going to commit or not.
It's always interesting when I see a guy on film that plays right tackle for his team that's being pursued by a university, and he's not a sophomore or a freshman, somebody who's still growing in the position. Maybe you have another guy who's at left tackle. So he plays right tackle for his team and is big on film. I agree with you. If he's being pursued for the interior, is he 6'6"? But definitely a big physical presence, which, again, we've talked about before. I wouldn't be surprised when we get some of the more measurables on him if his arm length isn't 33 plus. That seems to be really what Phil Trautwein is looking at when it comes to offensive linemen is power and size and arm length, all of those kind of prototypical things. And then, if they can be technically good as a pass blocker, that seems to be more of the mold they're going for as we move forward into more of the guys that he's recruiting. So I'll be interested to see any of those numbers and all of those numbers eventually when we get them on Josh Miller. But a guy that Penn State clearly is pursuing so far. Be an interesting thing to hear what comes out of this weekend. And you, of course, will give that to everyone at bwi.rivals.com and on the message board, all of the information there as well. There is a mailbag up because it's Friday, right?
Yep. It is. You should know it's Friday. I'm here every Friday, aren't I?
I know. I just sometimes the days blend together when you work from home. I'll be real with you about that. I'm like, I had to double check.
Doing it for a decade, man.
It is.
I know.
Yeah, this is. I'm not even through year one, and sometimes I forget what day of the week it is. So yeah. Is there anything quickly that you want to touch on as far as what people can check out in your mailbag? Want to make sure that they go to the site and they check out the full thing, though.
Yeah, so listen, I've been getting questions for ever since USC, on just how these rumors are going to impact James. So I hit on that a little bit. I'll get into it. I mean, if James Franklin leaves Penn State, it's going to be before December 15th, the early signing period, because I don't see him going anywhere else other than LSU or USC. Those schools present the kind of buy-in that he wants at Penn State. So that's why those two are intriguing to me, more so intriguing than in previous years. So I'm still not quite in the boat that I think he's actually going to leave. I still think he stays and is really just kind of continuing to fight the fight of improving facilities here, because that's what this is all about. This isn't about his contract. I know people talk about assistant coach money and stuff too, and that can always improve, but that has improved substantially in recent years. We don't have all the numbers privy to that, but just from talking to people, I feel like that's not as much of an issue anymore. It's really just about facilities. They got Lash updated or coming, but Haluba still needs a big update. Beaver Stadium locker room needs a big update. There's other things too that can always be done. And, with LSU and USC, those are the kind of schools that they'll get you those updates a lot quicker than Penn State has. And by the way, they'll throw 20% on top of it too, because they're just football crazy, and they'll put in those extra things. I know fans always talk about oh, look at USC, there's nobody there, there's no fans there. Well, yeah, it is a bit of a fair weather fan base, but the board there, the university as a whole, the donors, I mean, they are investing heavily into USC football right now. They had a major upgrade at the Coliseum, I believe is the stadium name there. That was in recent years, and some other things as well. And then LSU is just LSU. So
it's LSU.
To get back to the point, though, it's just a lot of people are like, well, are these rumors going to impact the class? Well, no, the rumors aren't. I mean, these kids have access to Penn State. They have access to James, everybody. They talk about it, I'm sure, regularly. What would impact it is just the fact that I don't see any world where USC and LSU don't have a head coach in place before that early signing period, so they can make sure that they lock down the players they have. I mean, LSU still has 8 quality Rivals 250 players committed. USC has a handful themselves. So just that's with them making moves early. They're making those moves early for a variety of reasons, and one of the big ones is to get a coach on board by early December at the latest. So that was a big talking point. And then one of the other ones was really decommitments and just kind of the talk around that. I know that was something you and I were going to talk about, so let's just kind of get right into it. There was some talk this week about Jordan Allen going to Ole Miss for an official visit this weekend. And one thing that kind of went under the radar a little bit was that Jordan Allen took an unofficial visit to LSU, I believe, 2 weeks ago. So for the most part, now listen, Jordan Allen's not going to Ole Miss now. Penn State talked to him about that. They kind of nipped it, and he's not going. But from what I was able to gather, that visit was more so about seeing LSU than Ole Miss. I don't know if that's 100% the case, but that was a part of it. It's not a coincidence that they're playing the team that he grew up pulling for, which is LSU. So my point with this is just that if a new staff goes to LSU, and it's not James Franklin, of course, do they offer Jordan Allen in the the days leading up to the early signing period? Because if they do, sorry, I got this itch right here. If they do, I think there's a real chance that he could flip. what Penn State
Right.
was to so many fans watching this is what LSU was to him growing up. I mean, that's kind of always been his dream school. So that'll be something to absolutely watch. But right now, I'm not too concerned about Ole Miss. It's really just if the new staff at LSU were to pursue him, then yeah, keep an eye out on that. And then just one other guy I want to mention quick is Cam Miller, the cornerback out of Trinity Christian Academy. He did pick up an offer from Florida. I believe it was early this week, I believe. Florida has to start winning a little bit more. I mean,
Yeah.
Mullen's under the gun a little bit, so I'll be curious to see. But it's still, I mean, that's his hometown school, basically. He grew up not too far from Gainesville, so it is something to watch. Whether he visits or not, Cam doesn't talk much, so I'm not going to pretend that I have a feel for what he's planning to do. But it's certainly something that we will do our best to keep an eye on. I've already talked to our Florida guys about that, to please give me a heads up if they see some movement there. So Cam makes sense to keep an eye on for. Jordan Allen makes sense if LSU comes pushing. But aside from that, I mean, it seems like a pretty firm class so far. I mean, Zane Durant went to UCF for a game earlier in the year. I don't believe he's gone anywhere else. He did come back to Penn State, so seems to be good there. John Scott just went to his game this last weekend. So that everything went well from there, from what I've gathered. So I mean, it seems pretty firm, man. It's just It's all about obviously James sticking with the program, and I think he will.
I want to go back to that conversation quickly, because I want to make just one comment that the assistant salaries were just the first part of what you talked about, of the commitment to football and the commitment to making sure the program is competitive. You don't have the people in the building that are going to help elevate the players and help get them where they want to go and help the program on the field. That's step one, right? You need to have the right people in the building, and then you're going to focus on the building. And I think that's just people kind of, because they relate to the money, right? We all relate to money because we all make money, we all think about money, we all have that in our lives. So when you see that, that's that's what it is. But I think you're right that you have to have the commitment in all areas to being competitive, which means you are competitive in all areas, and I think that's important. And then I want to flip this on its head, because we mentioned the guys and the decommitments from Penn State, but I have noticed over the last couple of days, maybe a week, 10 days, that there have been decommitments for high 4 stars from Florida State, guys from LSU, Florida State. Florida was another one, and I threw USC on the list because they're obviously without a head coach. Now, I don't want to bring those up, LSU and USC, for the James Franklin reasons. My point is, to what you said, if James Franklin stays at Penn State, are there any guys on the radar for 22, and how would that have to shake out for Penn State to maybe be interested in one of these high 4-star decommitments to come and be a part of a already loaded class?
There's no room.
Okay.
We can keep going on about this, but there's no room right now. It's still. I know Penn State would love to add some of these guys, and sure, but I mean they're at their max pretty much right now. I want to get Jayshon Barham on board. Yeah, maybe they can pursue somebody. I've heard nothing of that so far, though. So I don't. There's not a whole lot I can add to it. Now they will always. In the past, they've always been trying to flip guys and top targets. So, you certainly can't rule it out. But as of right now, man, it seems to me that 2022 is all about trying to get Jayshon Barham on board and then keeping the guys that they have. So, the only way I could see it is if other guys decommit. And,
right.
As we just hit on, I'm not seeing that right now. And if they do decommit, it's probably because, they're worried about James leaving or James has left. So, not much I can add other than that.
All right. I just wanted to ask because I know that I just know that that's how people think, right? Well, they see something out there and like, oh, there's a thing, we should get it. And there's some reasons why maybe you wouldn't do that. So that's really.
I'll say this: I haven't really seen anybody decommit who was intrigued with Penn State to begin with. You know what I mean? I don't know.
That's the other thing I wanted to read the room about, of the ability, the interest on both sides of any of these guys.
Jaden Gould, of course, he's committed to USC. Penn State was very interested in him. We thought he was coming to Penn State, and then he kind of surprised all of us the night before he announced publicly that he was going to USC. So, obviously, with him being a New Jersey guy, that would kind of make a little bit more sense. But he seems pretty firmly committed and isn't going to make a move yet. And then Like I said, I mean, the guys who have decommitted in recent weeks, it's not like they came up to Penn State before or even had Penn State among their top 3 or 4. So until one of those guys kind of emerge and makes Penn State really think, because that's a guy they have a previous relationship with and they know he was on campus and has a lot of interest, then there doesn't seem to be much to focus on. Jayshon Barham remains the guy. Emil Wagner, of course, is still very much in the mix. And we will go from there. One player I will mention, I haven't talked about a ton, is Anthony Smith from Shippensburg. He's committed to Minnesota. Brent Pry did go see his game last week, and that was one I was kind of keeping quiet. I mean, I put it on the board, and for everybody who subscribes, but publicly we were kind of keeping quiet just because I wanted to see first if he made it there, and then two, just kind of the reaction from that. I mean, Anthony came up and had a really good camp in the summertime, and that was a big thing, and it left a big impression on Penn State. So keep an eye on that, maybe moving forward. But they just have, I think, bigger positional needs other than defensive tackle. But he's intriguing, and Penn State doesn't ever want to let top players leave the state.
So this is the BWI Daily Edition, but you have the monthly edition of Blue White Illustrated, the magazine proper. Check out the November issue of Blue White Illustrated featuring Penn State's dynamic duo in the secondary, Jair Brown and Jaquan Brisker. BWI also gears up for winter sports with an exclusive Q&A with new head coach of Penn State basketball, Micah Shrewsbury, and a preview of the Nittany Lions wrestling lineup. Our wrestling fans will be ecstatic for that because wrestling season is basically here right now. Learn more at bluewhiteonline.com or by calling customer service 800-421-7751. Don't stop there. Of course, subscribe to our YouTube page, youtube.com/Blue White Illustrated. Hopefully you're watching the video on there right now so that you saw the Joey Schlaffer highlights, and you're going to see my awesome graphics coming up later, Ryan Snyder's best bets, which we're getting to right now. But make sure you subscribe. Here we go, Ryan. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So here's our list of games this week. Where do you want to start on this list as we go through the overall view of the season? Like you mentioned, 500 in the season, 4-3 last week, a good winning effort from you. So thank you very much for all your insight into this. Which game do you want to start with?
We'll just start at the top,
All right.
And we'll just roll through it as it's presently constructed. So with LSU Ole Miss, okay, -9 at Ole Miss. Actually, it's up to 9 now. So
okay.
I don't have a lot of interest in that. I have interest in the under 77, and here's why. So we've seen these high over-unders a couple times this year for Ole Miss in SEC play. Ole Miss Tennessee was 82 last week, fell substantially under. Alabama Ole Miss 79.5, fell substantially under.
Yeah.
Matt Corral is supposedly banged up a little bit, so I'm curious to see what happens there. I think he plays. I think Kiffin was kind of just doing some gamesmanship more than anything with that. But does he play the entire game? That's something to keep an eye on. But the main reason I like the under here is that LSU is starting to kind of run the ball pretty well. And they have to run the ball here if they're going to keep Ole Miss off the field. And that's the big thing, because Ole Miss is going to have the tempo. They're going to move the ball quick.
Yeah.
Ole Miss's defense, though, man, they ranked 120th in the nation in rushing success rate. I mean, they can't stop anybody on the ground. Running back Ty Davis-Price, he's getting it going, man. I think, let me see the stats here, 147 against Kentucky, 287 last week against Florida. I mean, LSU absolutely has to run the ball here. So I think they try and keep Ole Miss off the field as much as they can. They grind the clock down. This feels like a 35-27 kind of game to me, which we'll keep it under that total of 77. And yeah, I mean, I'll keep playing these Ole Miss unders all year because it feels like the books are just kind of shooting a little too high for me.
Yeah.
Now,
now a lot of that's based on
this will be the one that goes over.
A lot of that is based on Ole Miss's offense and not necessarily and their defense, right? So it's based on the ability. They can't stop anybody. But I thought it was a good point in the Alabama game that they brought up that like Ole Miss is built to stop a spread offense. They don't have the ability to then morph into anything else. Like they are still, when it comes to, I guess, the personnel up front, they're still behind some of the top SEC programs, which most places are. That's the brutality of playing in the SEC. So is that playing into the over-under for this as well of like, maybe some of these teams aren't necessarily as offensively as adept?
I think that's why it's so high. Yeah. I mean, I think it's more so just that they see two poor defenses here, especially with LSU having so many players. I mean, both their cornerbacks are out now. I think that's kind of what they're seeing here. But Ole Miss has some wide receiver injuries too to keep an eye on here, so that could impact the way they're able to move the ball. But I keep seeing these really high over-unders with Ole Miss against decent SEC teams. They played a couple lesser SEC teams that I think went over, but this is too high for me. It's still SEC ball. There's still quality players on LSU's defense. That makes me think that they can keep Ole Miss from scoring 50 in this game, and if they can keep them from scoring 50, which I think they definitely can, this should go under, because LSU is going to try and run the ball. They're going to try and milk the clock here, because that's their only way of winning this game. So I think Ty Davis-Price goes for another 150 or so, just steady 3 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards. LSU has produced a couple of explosive plays in recent weeks with the rushing, but they're not elite in that category. So give me the under 77.
I just 2 years after having Joe Burrow and Joe Brady, and we were talking about 4 yards of carry for LSU. Whew. Life comes at you fast. Okay.
Dude, LSU wasn't getting even that early in the year, man. Their rushing game was doing nothing. But now they're finally getting going a little bit. And again, man, 120th in rushing success rate, 120th in rushing success rate for Ole Miss. They can't stop the run. Okay, They can't stop it. So just, sure, LSU can do as many 4, 5, 6 minute drives as they want here and keep Matt Corral off the field.
So we'll go to Oklahoma State, Iowa State, and Iowa State getting a touchdown at home. What are you looking at in this game?
Yeah, giving a touchdown at home.
I'm sorry, giving a touchdown.
Just to clarify, Iowa State's, yeah. To me, there's a big advantage here. So like when I look at Iowa State's defense and Oklahoma State's defense, they're pretty similar, just statistically and different metrics. But Iowa State's offense is substantially better than Oklahoma State's offense. And look, Iowa State should have beaten Baylor. There was a kick return in that game that flipped it on its head. I think people are really kind of down on Iowa State because they have 2 losses already. They what was the number? They out in yards per play in the Iowa State game. They outgained them 2 yards per play, Iowa State compared to Iowa. So there were a lot of reasons to feel good about Iowa State going in that game. I had Iowa State against Iowa. I remember that. So, and of course, it lost, and this is degenerate in me, like finding excuses on why it lost. But right. My point here is Iowa State's offense is pretty good, and just Oklahoma State has just been getting lucky all year now, man. There was that botch call in the Boise State game that gifted the ref the win. That was another one I had on best bets, so don't get me started. Texas was about to go up 24-3 on them last week, and give Oklahoma State credit. They got a pick 6 that really flipped that game on its head. But I just see an Oklahoma State team that is just, yes, give them credit, they're winning games, but they're on the clock. Like, no way they can continue this with their offense struggling as much as they had. I mean, also one other thing, Spencer Sanders really struggles when he's getting rushed. When a quality pass rushing team faces him, this is the best pass rush he's going to face so far this year. So, I see an Iowa State offense that has a real advantage over Oklahoma State's defense. And like I said, Oklahoma State's defense, Iowa State's defense, they're both quality. But when I compare those two offenses, there's a real advantage there with Brock Purdy and Breece Hall. So give me the Cyclones -7. Now, I will say that this game in years, I think it's going back like 6, 7, 8 years, has been like pretty much a 1-possession game every time. So that was the one thing that gave me pause, but just so many other things point to Iowa State winning this by 10, 13 points. So I will roll the dice with the Cyclones, giving 7 at home.
I wanted to throw this up again because this number stood out to me. Yes, we're wrapping up Oklahoma State and Iowa State, but Oklahoma, Kansas here. I can't believe you. I can't imagine you're going almost 40 points with the Sooners. Is that what you're doing here?
Of course. Of course. Have you watched Kansas? Have you watched Kansas, man?
I mean, it's almost 40 points. I mean,
dude,
I agree.
They're going to win by 50.
Well, yeah.
Win by 50.
Now they got the quarterback situation presumably sorted out.
Here's all you need to know. Kansas hasn't covered a spread all year. Okay, they've had other spreads like this all year. Mine, getting 30-something against other teams. I wish I had them in front of me, but Kansas getting 30 points is like not anything new. I mean, this happens regularly on a weekly basis almost. So yeah, I will take it with first off, they're rolling right now with Caleb Williams. This is a
Yeah.
different offense with him. The kid is playing great, and Oklahoma always crushes when they can crush. Like they don't take the foot off the gas, just like James Franklin. When he doesn't take the foot off the gas if he doesn't ever take it off. Let's just be honest. I mean, when he can run it up, he will run it. And Lincoln Riley is the same exact way. Dude, I see this being 50 something to 14 maybe. I mean, I guess if it's 50 something to 14 it wouldn't cover, but 50 to 10, just somewhere in that ballpark, they will cover this. I feel good about it, man. Until Kansas covers the spread, I just don't see it happen. And Oklahoma's defense, like, look, they've been down a little bit in recent weeks, but there is real talent there compared to previous years, and they're playing just a completely inferior team. I mean, there is nothing about Kansas that says they should be a Power 5 program. So, yeah, I will lay 38.5 because I think they're going to win by 48 or more.
What's the biggest favorite you've bet this season? It's got to be close. This is
it'll be this.
This will be
there was the Florida Vanderbilt was like 35, I believe.
Yeah.
And they covered. So, yeah, I'll lay it. I mean, just whenever I see these teams that, have shown me nothing. I mean, Kansas has shown nothing. They haven't covered a game all year. They're 0-6 against the spread. And now I'm going against Lincoln Riley with a young quarterback with something to prove. And, oh, by the way, if they put in Spencer Rattler, he's got to pretty much debut for wherever he's going to end up next. So,
right.
I don't even know, like, will they play Spencer Rattler because of that whole situation? Does it make things worse? I mean, I guess they probably will. They'll get up big here, but just, having him come in and mop up duty, does that work? I don't know. So right. I see Oklahoma scoring on 80% of their drives. Maybe they'll let up a little bit in the fourth quarter, but by then they should be up well over 40.
I imagine if he if he doesn't get in, you'll be hearing the transfer portal light up. You'll be hearing the transfer. I need to get a transfer portal sound effect so we can play that during the show. But you'll be hearing that if he doesn't get into the game.
He will absolutely be gone. Because I don't see him going to the pros yet. So yeah, it's just a matter of time. He'll be a good teammate and stick out the season. But he'll be gone.
Here's an intriguing one. I genuinely don't know what you're going to be doing with this one. Clemson at Pitt. Pitt getting the home field advantage. Pitt -3. What are you thinking?
I'll give you a guess. Okay, so Pitt -3, Clemson +3, or will I do over under 48.5? What do you think? Just what would be your guess?
I'd go with the over on this one. Because no?
Under.
Okay. All right.
Under. Hey, man, this is a major step up for Kenny Pickett, okay?
Yeah.
Like he's been playing well in recent weeks, but Clemson's defense still stacked with talent. We've seen Pitt in this role in the past, too. Like Narduzzi gets very conservative when he's playing teams with better talent, okay? So, yes, Clemson is down. No doubt about that. But I still think Narduzzi knows that there are disadvantages for his team. He has to. I mean, if he doesn't, then, whatever. But I see another Pat Narduzzi kind of getting a little conservative in a big game moment, and Clemson's offense can't do anything. So until they show me that they can put up points, I mean, they almost lost to Syracuse the other week. The guy missed the field goal, or Syracuse would have upset them. And the pace of play between these two teams, very slow. I mean, neither of these guys are running it real fast. So, yeah, I will take under 48.5. I think that's too much. I see Pitt winning. I do, which I never would have thought that a handful of weeks ago.
Okay, then.
But I don't know if they'll cover 3. So I think this could be 21-20 kind of game maybe. But I'll take the under. I feel good about the under here.
So I feel like this is an unfair question, but what's happened? I haven't been paying attention to Clemson this year.
Just like the question I just asked you, by the way, giving you 4 options, and you were deemed to never answer that correctly. But go on.
What's up with Clemson this year? I feel like Dabo Swinney has bought himself a down year, but is Uiagalelei not the guy? What's going on with their offense?
Uiagalelei is not the guy. I mean, that's just. I can't pretend I watched a lot, just like you. We're incredibly busy on Saturdays, so I can't pretend I've really focused on them a ton. But just from what I have seen, this guy is completely overrated. So sorry, DJ, if you're watching. Doubt you are, but
I mean, he's on Dr.
I don't
Pepper
see it, man.
commercials, so I think he's
Good for
okay
him.
with where it got him. But yeah, I tend to agree.
I don't know if he's going to be getting NFL contracts, so get that money while you can, buddy.
So we'll go on to the next one. Wake Forest at Army. Wake Forest giving up 3 points on the road here. Undefeated.
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
Not going to have it anymore, man. I'm going with the Army, man. Black Knights. Okay, so Wake Forest allowed 354 yards rushing to Syracuse the other week. They allowed 208 yards rushing to Louisville the week prior. I mean, this defense cannot stop anybody on the ground. And Wake Forest is terrible in these situations. As a road favorite in the last 6 games, they're 1-5. And look, when you're an offensive team and you're playing Army, it doesn't end well. We've seen this before in the past. When you rely on your offense and your defense is the weak point, Army's not going to let your offense on the field, man. They're going to just slowly, methodically drive down the field. One other thing with Wake Forest, they're 90th in the nation in stuff rate. And stuff rate, of course, is keeping what's this at? Is it under 3 yards for rushing? Basically, it's something.
Basically, if you allow under the average, you've won that down as the defense.
Exactly. So they're not doing that at all, which tells me Army should be able to pick up 4 or 5 yards here consistently throughout the game. And then a big thing here is Christian Anderson, Army's quarterback, is expected to be back. He didn't play their last 2 games. They lost their last 2 to Ball State and Wisconsin. I had that Ball State Army game a couple weeks back in Best Bets here. And I wish I didn't know the quarterback was going to be out, or I wouldn't have ever played that, especially as I watched it. I was like, oh, no, I'm doomed here. So I didn't know the quarterback was out. So sorry about that, guys. Should have known that. But yeah, Anderson's expected back now. They've been a much better team with him because he can actually throw it a little bit when they have to. I mean, so I'll take Army at home here. This is just Wake Forest is kind of on the clock. This is a situation where they don't fare well. They did have a bye week, so I would think it would help them a little bit against the triple option. But again, man, 354 yards against Syracuse says a lot to me. Now you got to try and stop Army. I just don't see it happen. I think Army wins this outright. I was actually debating on just playing the money line here, but I'll take the 3 points and play it safe for best bets.
So last game is our featured game of the week. As always, we end with the Penn State game, Illinois at Penn State for the Generations of Greatness homecoming game. Penn State minus 23.5 at home, which I would say, is there a prop bet for Sean Clifford playing in this game? But I think it's just the line. I think that's just the line. That's the prop bet. So what are you thinking about in this game?
So I listened to you and Nate yesterday, and you guys don't think Sean Clifford's going to play in this game?
So I don't.
I do.
This is where I wanted to
very much do.
This is where I wanted to go with you because yes, we talked about what you had to say about this. So I want to hear what you have to say. I know you were paying attention in practice, and what did you see on Wednesday, and what makes you feel so strongly about that?
What's the best way to put it without getting in trouble? Just kidding. I just think Sean Clifford's playing, guys. I think he's been. I don't think James has been completely honest about splitting reps in practice. I think from what I've gathered, there is an advantage, and Sean Clifford's getting definitely more first team reps than everybody else. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm not, pushing all the chips in, saying Sean Clifford's absolutely going to play, but from what I saw on Wednesday, you go back to his little Instagram the Monday after the Iowa game, and it kind of hinted that he was going to be okay. I think personally, they may have had some x-rays done that day maybe, and they learned some good news. Again, not true inside information, just in my head there, but that's kind of – I'm adding things up. Oh, by the way, there's one other thing too, and this is somebody I trust. Chris Felica, the Bear on ESPN, has now gone on 2 straight podcasts over last week and this week. It's saying that he expects Sean Clifford to play against Illinois. That guy's connected. I'm not saying he's some super insider or anything like that, but anybody who's connected high up in ESPN's college football staff has information that the local media, we're not privy to. So, and I don't know if James Franklin and them know that he's put that out on his podcast in recent weeks, but he called it last week that he thought Sean Clifford was going to play against Illinois, and it totally caught me off guard. I put it on the board, and I was like, oh, wow, this is interesting, because I thought Clifford was going to be out possibly for Ohio State too.
Yep. Well, that's where we all were that's where we all were operating from. Yeah.
He doubled down again this week and said that he believes Clifford's going to play. He didn't completely go on and say it's happening, but he thinks he is. So, I saw him at practice the other night. Yeah, he's maybe not 100%, but I kind of think he's going to play in this one. Now, with that said, my pick is actually the under, because I do believe that Penn State just wants to get this win and get the hell out, and get to focusing on Ohio State. Illinois is averaging just 17 points per game. Penn State's defense allowing 14 points per game. Even if Sean plays, I could see him getting pulled early. I mean, there's no reason. Penn State gets up 20. I know James Franklin, like we were just talking about how James likes to keep his foot on the gas. Well, there's ever a week where you can kind of get out of that. It's this week. And then, of course, if Sean doesn't play, how the hell is Penn State going to get over 46 points against the Illinois team that can't do anything offensively? The only way I see that is if they play the backups on defense too.
This is a 1st to 17 game. I see. Yeah,
I don't see Illinois getting 17 points. So I think we'll see somewhere in the 20s, 24-7, maybe 27-7. That's why I'm not going to take the spread here on this one, but. I can't see Illinois, like I said, getting the 14. I can't see Penn State. I can't see Clifford playing the entire game if he does play. And if that happens, I just, we already saw. I think Roberson's better than what we saw against Iowa. I truly do. I think he was in a really tough position there. But it's not like if either him or Veilleux came in that they're going to light it up and, have 3 touchdowns on 5 drives. So I will take the under here. Like I said, 27-7 is kind of my thought with this one. But my main thing is I think Sean Clifford's going to play.
So on that part, I'm very slow to come off my priors. And everything we saw in that game, the fact he didn't come back into the game. And yes, the Instagram posts and everything have been very positive the whole time. But if he has the injury that we all expect and we all speculated that he has,
that's the thing. We're all speculating,
right? But
we're not speculating.
You're not going to see any obvious signs of, I think, pain from him specifically because he's such a tough guy, and you're not going to see any it's not a shoulder injury because he hasn't been in a sling at any point, so I can't see anything in the non-throwing shoulder being a problem. So yeah, it does kind of throw it up in the air. But what we had kind of heard and felt around with, I'm just slow to come off that. Seeing him at practice, I'm always conservative when it comes to. Bold predictions, projections, things like that, or projections, as I said just now. But I wouldn't be surprised if he plays. The psychological games this week have gotten me completely turned around, but that's not surprising. About that. That's easy to do to me.
I highly doubt Kinnick Stadium has an X-ray machine in there. I don't think they do. I don't think any of these college stadiums do. Okay,
yeah.
I think they held him out because they thought he had cracked or broken ribs. Okay, because I think it was clear it had to be a rib injury. The way he was walking, it had to be a rib injury.
Yep.
I think when they got back here, they realized it was just a deep bruise. That's genuinely what I think happened. I don't know. I do recruiting, and I do not risk. I do not risk losing recruiting sources over trying to dig for that stuff. Anybody on our message board knows that. I'm incredibly grateful for the people who work with me on recruiting. So I don't risk that stuff.
Yeah.
My impression is that's what happened. I think that they were worried that there was something more serious there. He wasn't, just the way he was walking on the sideline. I mean, it wasn't, like he was wrapped up or anything. I mean, he was still able to move there. So I've never had broken ribs. I've had, my dad has. I've had friends who have. I mean, when you really break them, you can't even really walk. So, the fact, just looking back at it all now, it makes sense that they were worried about something more. They learned on Monday that it wasn't. You sit him out the bye week, you let him rest, and then once we roll around to this week, his bruised ribs, which I think they may have been, are maybe now healed. And hey, maybe he won't even play, but it's definitely clear to me he's going to play against Ohio State. He's not out there Wednesday if that's not going to happen. So
that's where I wanted to land because that felt safe. That felt safe that if he's practicing Wednesday, he's definitely playing against Ohio State. That's where I wanted to hedge my bets there. But yeah, you've already convinced me. That's what I'm saying. It's it's not that hard to convince me of something. Yes, your evidence all fits. But right, when we're speculating, your evidence all fits into a very logical timeline. So I'm in. You've convinced me. Tomorrow, we're talking about Sean Clifford playing in this game.
Yeah, I think so. And maybe maybe Penn State will take the conservative route, but they don't normally do that. And they want to play their starters. It's kind of like the talk you've had with Hannafin before about sitting guys. They don't like doing that. They want to make sure their top guys are playing. So maybe Clifford won't be 100%, but if you can get him in there, you can get an early lead, you can pull him, and you can just run this clock out. One other thing I will say is that Illinois' rush defense is not good. I mean, they're allowing 188 yards per game. If Penn State can't get the ball running a little bit in this one, then I think there's real problems going against Michigan and Ohio. I mean, even Ohio State's defense isn't great, I know, but I think there will be problems in those upcoming games, including Michigan State. So they need to get a run game going in this one.
And they do, because the Illinois defense, the strength of the team in general is the secondary, from what I've seen of. They can do some things. If Sean Clifford doesn't play, they can disguise some coverages. They can throw some things at a young quarterback that he hasn't seen before. That can keep the game close, but if Penn State can't run the ball against this defense that is playing a nose tackle that looks like he's 275 pounds, that's my problem with, and I know I've said this already on the show today, and I've mentioned this on the message boards, and one last time. If you're the defensive coordinator and the head coach, you get to choose the situations you put these guys in. So if you don't have a nose tackle, don't run a tight front.
Mm-hmm.
Don't throw that on them. That's your decision. Yeah. So that's... Yeah.
That was funny this week. Felt bad for those players, but whatever. Yeah. We good?
Anyway,
let's run it back. Let's review them.
Let's go. I had to get off my rant, so here we go. Here's your list. Give it to me.
Give me the under 77 in LSU Ole Miss. Again, we've seen these really high numbers in these Ole Miss games against somewhat quality opponents in Tennessee and Alabama. Both of them fell under. I'll keep playing it until they don't. And by the way, LSU's starting to run the ball a lot, so I think they can keep Ole Miss off the field at least a bit more than what I thought a couple weeks ago. Iowa State -7. I just see a clear advantage for Iowa State's offense here. The two defenses are pretty comparable, and just Oklahoma State's just been getting so lucky in so many games this year. I just think that luck's about to run out. I see Iowa State winning by 10-13. With this Oklahoma-Kansas game, look, if you don't want to play it, that's fine, but Kansas hasn't covered a spread all year. So until they do, I'm going to keep betting against them. Give me the under 48.5 in Clemson-Pitt. I think Narduzzi gets conservative. I think this is a major step up for Kenny Pickett. And until Clemson shows me they can do something on offense, I'll play the under here. Army +3 against Wake Forest. Wake Forest is another team who is due to lose a game. They allowed 354 yards against Syracuse. They're 1-5 in their last games as a road favorite. And, Army has their starting quarterback back. So I think Army can outright win this. If you're going to play it, sprinkle some money on the money line. And then give me the under 46 in Penn State, Illinois. Even if Sean Clifford plays, I think they really want to establish the run here and do their best to just get out of here with a 14 to 21 point win, maybe 17. I don't know, but the over or the spread's just a little bit too high for me. But I think this is a 27, maybe even 31-7 kind of game. But I'll take the under 46.
Here you are giving Penn State fans all kind of good news on a Friday. They're gonna you give them a FutureCast this week, and you tell everybody, and you convince even me, super conservative to ever change, drastically on something based on one thing, that Sean Clifford's going to play this week. So it's going to be a great weekend for Penn State football.
We're definitely seeing Roberson out there running now, but we'll see. We'll find out a little bit during pregame. I'll be curious to see what they do during pregame, if they show much there or not. But I think we've all been speculating for a long time now, and like I said, it made sense that they would held him out if they don't have X-rays and they can't do all that stuff in the stadium. You got to play it conservative, but then when you get home and you realize, oh, they're not broken, they're not cracked, they're just bruised ribs, it changes everything.
That'll do it today for the BWI Daily Edition. Our recruiting insider and our blue-white illustrated sharp, Ryan Snyder, joining us today. As always, thanks for coming on the show. Love ending the Friday. I love ending the week this way.
I enjoy it too. By the way, I'm going to see Bo Perbula, Kenny Johnson tonight. I'm really excited to go see Bo, so should be a fun time.
That'll be a good one. Be looking for highlights from that next week on our YouTube channel from Ryan. He does a great job covering all the Penn State recruits and the games in the region. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr of the BWI Daily Edition, and of course, our post-game show after Penn State, Illinois, 15 minutes after the final whistle. Don't forget to check it out.